Should heirs force the sale of property? When a loved one passes away, the property of the deceased person or often becomes the responsibility of their heirs. But should those heirs be allowed forced sale of that property? This is a complex question with no easy answer, as it ultimately depends on the circumstances surrounding each individual case. Sale of property by an heir can have both positive and negative effects, so before making any decisions in this regard, it's important to weigh all factors carefully. There are a lot of heirs property myths that may confuse you, so it's better to be informed before selling. How heirs property works. Heirs property is any real estate that has been passed down through generations without a will, leaving the ownership of the property divided among multiple heirs. This can cause major problems for heirs who are trying to sell or manage the inherited property, as all owners must agree on what should be done with it. In some cases, forcing a sale of property might be necessary in order to divide up assets equitably and give each heir their share of inheritance. However, this process can be difficult and may require legal action. Therefore, it's important for heirs to understand how heirs property works before deciding whether or not they should force a sale. Can siblings force the sale of inherited property? It's possible for siblings to force the sale of inherited property, depending on the situation. For instance, if there's an agreement among all siblings that they should sell the property, then they can move forward with this process. However, in order for this to be legally binding, each sibling must agree and sign documents in order to take it official. It's important to note that if one or more siblings do not agree with the sale of the property, their wishes will take precedence and it cannot proceed without their consent. In some cases, a court may determine that it would be best for the property to be sold and split among siblings as part of estate distribution. This typically occurs in cases where there are large disputes and disagreements about how the estate should be divided. In such circumstances, a judge can decide in favor of selling off the inherited property instead of trying to assign ownership rights among siblings who cannot take a decision on their own. Even when multiple legal heirs agree that they should sell off inherited property, there is still legal proceedings that must take place before any action can be taken. Depending on state laws and other factors, certain procedures must be followed in order to properly transfer ownership rights from a deceased person's estate to new owners. Additionally, tax implications may also need to be considered depending on how much value is present in the inherited assets being sold off. Ultimately, whether or not siblings can force the sale of an inherited property depends heavily on particular circumstances and agreements between parties involved. It's important for heirs to understand what options are available and carefully consider all factors before making a decision in this regard. How to divide inherited property between siblings. This is because it involves family dynamics and considerations, such as fairness in inheritance distributions. While there are several ways to address this issue, including negotiating a settlement or going through mediation and arbitration, it's important to understand all the options available so that everyone involved can make an informed decision. Can a property with multiple heirs be sold? The sale of property that has multiple heirs can be a tricky situation. Ultimately, if an heir is determined to force the sale of property with multiple owners, then they would need to consult a qualified attorney for advice and guidance about the particular situation. For there may be things that needs to be talked or settled like the property taxes, property law, number of family members, partition action, factors of legal ownership, and other legal process. Selling your inherited house to Eagle Cash buyers is an excellent choice for anyone looking to quickly and efficiently sell off their inherited property. By utilizing their fast cash offer process, you'll receive offers within 24 hours and be able to close in as little as 7 days. Plus, you won't have to worry about any of the legal process and tax implications associated with selling a property as they handle everything for you. Conclusion. Ultimately, the decision of whether heirs could force the sale of the inherited property is a complex one that requires careful consideration. Each situation is unique and must be addressed in its own merits. If all parties involved can come to an agreement about selling off the property, then it may be possible for them to do so legally. However, if there are disputes or disagreements among siblings over how to divide assets from an estate, then consulting with legal professionals who understand inheritance law may be necessary in order to determine what steps need to be taken next. Regardless of which approach you take when dealing with this issue, understanding your rights as well as those of other family members will help ensure that everyone's interests are protected throughout the process.